Hi everyone and welcome back to Chrono Production. So today is finally the day. I'm so excited. I finally got my Marvel Champions Mad Titan Shadow expansion in the mail. I could finally do these hero decks I've been talking about forever now. They're supposed to come out way back on October 1st, but we're finally going to get them done. The way it's going to work is I'm going to split these hero decks into two videos. The first one, Spectrum, which you're about to watch, is going to be out October 15th. And Adam Warlock, the second one, will probably follow on October 22nd, depending on how future releases go. But in general, I'm happy to finally be talking about these. So we'll get straight into the Spectrum video. Hope you guys enjoy it. So, Spectrum. So, Spectrum is a one thwart, one attack, one defense, just ones across the board hero. She's an aerial and Avenger. She's a hand size of 5 on her hero side and a hit points of 11. Her hero side skill says Forced Response. After you change to this form, choose a face down energy form upgrade. Flip that card face up to change that energy form. So I haven't actually seen her energy forms yet, but this is a big thing with her deck, is that I've heard this from several people already, that a lot of what her deck is about these form upgrades that constantly are flipping and changing, which fits with Spectrum. If you know anything about Spectrum, she's very malleable as a hero. That's one of her things. She's almost pure energy, so it's a really thematic way to look at it. Her alter ego side is Monica Rambeau. She has a recovery of 3. She has a hand size of 6 in her alter ego form, which is pretty standard. Still hit points of 11, obviously. It says setup, which happens at the beginning of the game. Put all 3 energy form upgrades into play face down. After you change this form, turn all your energy forms. Okay, so turn all your energy form upgrades face down. So basically, when you're on their alter ego form, all your forms are face down. And then when you flip to the hero side, you choose one and flip it face up and change that form. So you just pick one when you flip to your hero side. We'll see if there's ways to utilize multiple forms at once, but you pick a form when you flip to the hero side, and then when you flip back, they all flip face back down, and then when you flip back to hero form, you pick another one. So it's a really interesting mechanic. Well, I'm very curious if there's a way to utilize more than one form, because what it sounds like right now is you have 3, and then you pick one for your hero form, and then when you go back to alter ego form, you don't have any of them. So, pause, because we're going to talk about those forms now. Okay. The first form upgrade is called Gamma. It's energy form. It's permanent, which means it cannot be removed. There's no way for the villain deck to get rid of this card. It says Spectrum gets +2 attack. After you change to this energy form, deal 1 damage to an enemy. So if you're flipping to your hero form, you pick this one, you deal a damage to an enemy, and as long as this one is active, Spectrum gets +2 attack. So it goes from 1 attack to 3 attack. The next one is Photon. Again, energy form, permanent. In this form, Spectrum gets +2 thwart. And after you change to this energy form, remove 1 threat from a scheme. So it's basically the same thing as the attack one, except for it focuses on thwarting instead of damage, which is pretty typical of a card like this. The last one is called Pulsar. As you might imagine, you can probably guess what this one does. Energy form permanent. Spectrum gets +2 defense. After you change to this energy form, heal 1 damage from Spectrum. So you have an attack form, a defense form, and a thwart form. It's a really interesting concept. Like I said, I'm curious if there's a way to utilize more than one, or if you have to pick one each time. But it does seem like a good way to balance the character. Okay, so the signature ally for Spectrum, and I've seen this card already, is Blue Marvel. He's a 3-cost ally with 2 thwart and 2 attack. He gets 3 activations, and his ability says, after Blue Marvel enters play, change energy forms. So I guess you can only have one active at a time, but this card is a way for you to switch without having to go to alter ego form and then back to hero form. So seems like it could be really useful. If you're dedicated to one form, however, I don't know that this card would be much use, but I'm trying to think about how good this card is. I mean, worst case scenario, it's a 6 thwart, 6 attack, or some combination of the two for 3 cost, which is not bad by itself. And but the fact that it says it's not a May ability, so after you play this, you have to switch forms. You definitely want to time this right. This is not a card you just drop out when you're not paying attention to what form you're in already. Okay, the next card is a 2-cost upgrade. It's called Energy Duplication. It says, exhaust energy duplication, generate the printed resource of your face-up energy form upgrade. Okay, so I didn't catch what the... Okay, yeah, so each of them only has one printed resource. Each one of them has a different resource. One is red, one is yellow, one is blue. But basically, it's just a way to exhaust this to produce an energy. A lot of heroes have cards like this. There are 2 of them in the deck, so it's a 2-cost upgrade that you can use to pay costs rather than discarding cards from your hand. So it's a good card, pretty standard. I guess it could matter what form you're in if you needed to pay a specific cost. But in general, I think most of the time it's just going to be a, like, tap this to pay a resource. I don't think the type of resource is going to matter that often, but it could, depending on the deck you're building. Okay, the next card is called Gamma Blast. It's a 3-cost event. It counts as an attack. It says change to Gamma energy form and deal 7 damage to an enemy. If you are already in Gamma form, this attack gains Overkill. Overkill means that you can kill a minion and it will still do damage to the main villain. So 3 costs for 7 damage isn't amazing. The fact that it gains... it is good. It's not as high as we've seen some other heroes with their big attack. I'm assuming this is her big attack. There are 3 copies of it in the deck, though, which normally there's only 2 copies of the main attack. The fact that it gains Overkill is nice, but it's situational. There's not always a minion out there to blast away. Most of the time, you're just going to deal 7 damage to the boss anyway. But it's not a bad card. So the next one is called Photon Speed. It's a 2-cost event. Very similar. It says change to Photon energy form and remove 4 threat from a scheme. If you were already in Photon energy form, ignore the crisis icon for this threat. Now, this, on the other hand, can be very, very useful in a lot of situations. There are 3 copies of this as well in the deck. The crisis icon means that you cannot remove threat from the main scheme until you've dealt with the crisis scheme. A crisis scheme will come up and it'll say crisis as an icon. I'll put the icon over here in the video. Basically what that means is you have to deal with the crisis scheme before you can go back to dealing with the main scheme. But there have been a couple ways in the past to get around the crisis icon, and Spectrum has a one built into her deck, which is really cool. I think that because of that, Spectrum Justice could be very, very strong. Okay, the next card is called Pulsar Shield. It's a 1-cost event. I wonder if you can guess what this one does. Sorry, I am excited. It's just, this is getting repetitive. When Spectrum defends, change to Pulsar energy form and ready Spectrum. If you were already in Pulsar energy form, she gains Retaliate 1 until the end of the phase. This is also a lot stronger than the first one. One, because it's a 1-cost, which is insane for something like this. Basically what it means is if you're guarding an attack for yourself or for a teammate, normally you don't ready your hero until the end of your turn, so guarding an attack prevents you from doing any basic abilities on your next turn. But this says change to your defensive form and ready Spectrum which is really nice. The ability to ready your hero when they defend is huge. Retaliate 1 means that the attacking character also takes a damage from your defending, which is also nice. But yeah, 1 cost for this is really, really low, and I think that's what makes it really strong, honestly. Okay, so the last card in the identity cards. This is the last of the Spectrum-specific cards, and then we'll get into the leadership cards. It's called Speed of Light. It's a 0-cost event, which you already know. I'm a big fan of those if you've seen my other videos. Change energy forms and draw 1 card is what it does. So you replace this card and change forms. I think that this could be really useful, especially for setting up some of those other plays that say you have to already be in that form to gain the additional benefit. I think that this could be a really good way, because it's just an event, which means you can play it from your hand. It's a good way to gain the additional benefit of the card you're trying to play. And the ability to draw a card and replace it just means you're not losing out on anything, which is really, really nice. So that's the Spectrum cards. That's all of her identity cards. It does come with a whole host of leadership cards and basic cards, and we'll go over what it comes with, especially the new cards. I know there's a few that are repeat cards, but we'll go over them anyway. So this first one, remember, leadership is the one that's all about the allies on the field, which is an interesting choice for Spectrum when all of her cards deal with her basic abilities pretty much. But anyway, you can change. I personally would change her to something else. But anyway, the first leadership card is Captain America. Captain America. It's a 6-cost ally, which is insane. Sorry. Paying 6 is crazy. I can see that there's a way to get around it on the card already, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but just the fact that it's a 6-cost ally in general would mean, without the effect it has, would mean like dumping your whole hand just to play this one ally. But anyway, it's a 6-cost ally, has 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 4 activations. So 8 thwart, 8 attack, or some combination of the two. It has toughness, which means the first time it would take damage, it just doesn't, which is really, really nice. And its effect says reduce the cost to play Captain America by 1 for each Avenger character you control. So already, if you're playing an Avenger hero, which Spectrum is, he costs 5. But if you have other Avenger allies on the board, he could potentially cost 2. Or less, honestly, if you have a couple other cards in play. But basically, you can get him down to 2. That you have to do it perfectly, and then you lose an ally when you play him if you don't have a way to amplify the number of allies you can have on the board. Jesus, sorry. And this is not a super strong ally to play on the board for the cost it has. I don't like this card personally. I don't think it's bad, but I think you're going to want to build a deck that fits what this card is trying to do in order to do anything with this card at all, honestly. But it is Captain America, so if you're like a Captain America fan but you're playing a different hero, go for it. He has 1 thwart and 0 attack. I'm sure there's something about that. He takes 2 consequential damage from his 0 attack, which means he can only get off 2 attacks because he has 3 health, or he can get off 3 thwarts because he has 1 consequential damage on that. I'll put the card up and we'll talk about it on the video. He enters play with 2 chi counters on him, so 2 counters. Discard any number of chi counters from Power Man. He gets +2 attack for each chi counter discarded this way until the end of the phase. So you could potentially bomb someone for 4 and then like thwart for 1 next turn, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird card. But if you have a way to ready allies, I feel like that's where this card shines. If you can get this ally back up and swing him again, that's really what you're trying to do. And there's ways to do it. The fact that he takes 2 damage from his attack, though, really kind of hurts this card, I feel like. So we're going to move on and talk about the next one, because the next one, I think, is one of the most underrated characters in Marvel Comics. It's White Tiger. I'll show you. I'll actually show you this one if I can, because, like I said, I think White Tiger is one of the more underrated characters in Marvel Comics, but this is what she does in the game. She's a 3-cost ally with 2 thwart, 2 attack. She has 2 activations, so 4 thwart, 4 attack, or some combination of the 2. It says, after you play White Tiger from your hand, draw X cards. Already I like this. To a maximum of 3, where X is equal to the villain's stage number. If the villain has no stage number, draw 1 card. Okay, so it's a little, I wouldn't say worse necessarily. It's very similar to Ironheart or Maria Hill, if you've seen my other videos. The villain's stage number, so if you're playing regular, the villain's stage number is either 1 or 2. If you're playing expert mode, the villain stage number is 2 or 3. There are some villains that don't have stage numbers, that's why they put that clause in there. Drawing 2 cards is nice. The fact that it costs 3, I don't think the card is bad. I think you would really have to find a way to fit it. I think it could go in my leadership deck, and I'd have to play around with it to see. But that 3 cost, man, that could potentially really hurt it. But it's not a bad card. If you don't have access to Maria Hill, this could be a really good card. Or if you want to supplement Maria Hill with this card, I think that could be good too. I don't think it's bad. I just think you need to think about, really do the math on the card, and then before you just expect it to do wonders for you. Okay, the next ally is called Kalu, K-A-L-U-U. I am not familiar with this character personally. He's a 2-cost ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 activations. His effect says, after Kalu enters play, search the top 5 cards of your deck. I don't know what the rest of this says, but that's already pretty exciting. For an event, add that event to your hand, shuffle your deck. Okay, so this in the right deck could be really, really strong. You need to be running events, at least a decent amount, so you make sure you hit something off this, because the worst feeling in the world for cards like this is when you look at the top 5 cards, and there's none you can grab. You do shuffle your deck. Okay, so it's not that the cards go to the discard pile. That was my other concern, because we tend to not think about the discard pile, but the faster you churn through your deck, the more you're going to accelerate the main scheme, and that's not a good thing. However, this just shuffles the cards back into your deck. I think this is a really good card. I'm actually really excited about this one. Like I said, you have to be running a relatively event-heavy deck. I think I would picture this in a, like, Gamora leadership deck. Gamora is an interesting case anyway, but I'll have to look at Gamora again and see if this card could be really good. I think this card could be really, really good in a Gamora deck, truthfully. I think it's good in general. Okay, the next card is a 3-cost support called Mighty Avengers. It says play under any player's control. So you can give this to a teammate if you want. Max 1 team card per player. If each of your characters has the Avenger trait, each ally you control gets +1 thwart and +1 attack. We've seen sort of Avengers tribal builds before with different decks. This is an interesting one because it allows you to help someone who's playing Avengers Tribal on your team, even if you're not building Avengers yourself. I feel like you'd still want to be building Avengers, so that because you could play one under yourself and one on a teammate, you could totally do that. I think that's really where you want to be, is like focus on your deck, and then if it can help your teammate, go ahead and give them one too. But it's a cool idea. And it's a 3-cost support. That's not terrible. I probably wouldn't run it at 3, but I could see it being really good in the right deck. Especially if you know someone on your team is also building Avengers, which is pretty common. Sometimes people build Avengers and they don't even realize that they're doing it. That's how many Avengers cards are in the game. The next card is a 3-cost event called Mass Attack. It counts as an attack. It says exhaust 3 allies you control that share a trait with your hero. So this is another tribal card. You need to be playing allies that match your hero's trait. Deal X damage to an enemy where X is the total attack of those allies and your hero. Holy shit. No wonder this is a 3-cost event. This could do a ton of damage in the right situation. Again, you kind of have to build around it, but if you ever manage to get one of these off, man, you're probably talking like minimum probably minimum 5 damage, and could be upwards of 9 damage. And the best part is that you save your allies an attack. So you're essentially attacking with all your allies without them taking the consequential damage. Plus, you're throwing in your hero's attack into the damage as well. And I feel like this card could be really good if you build around. Again, you have to go. It doesn't have to be Avengers. They're Guardians of the Galaxy, or they're just called Guardians. Guardians is another popular tribe to run. I'm using Magic the Gathering lingo. I'm sorry. I don't know how a trait is the word. But I think when the Spider-Verse expansion comes out, this could be really good in a Spider-Man leadership deck, because I feel like they're going to start doing like Web Warriors traits, and I think that's going to be really good. Okay, the next card is a 0-cost event. Hey, buddy. It's called Moxie. Hero response. After you change form, your hero gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense until the end of the round. The end of the round is the end of the villain's turn, so it counts for your turn, teammates' turns, and the villain turn. That's after you change form. So after you go from alter ego to hero form, you can play this and get +1 to all your stats. I think that could be really good in Spectrum. I think if you were going to go Spectrum leadership, you almost have to run this card. I think this card is essential for a Spectrum leadership deck. It's weird because it doesn't have anything to do with allies, and not necessarily necessary. I think it could be really good, honestly. Okay. Here we go. I knew there'd be some heavy hitters in here. The next card is called Band Together. It's a resource card. It generates a resource of any kind for each ally you control to a maximum of 3. This could be really, really strong. If you're playing leadership, you're gonna have 3 allies out relatively often, and this one card it doesn't even say you have to spend it on a leadership card. This just counts for 3 resource. You don't even have to use it on a leadership card. This is just, and it's not limited to, you can put 3 of these in a deck. Holy shit. This card is really, really good. This is just strictly better than the power of leadership, and you can have more of this in the deck. This is crazy. Band Together. Tell your friends. Okay, that does it for the leadership cards in the deck. The next set of cards we're going to talk about are the basic cards. The first one is another ally. It's a 1-cost ally with 1 thwart and 2 attack. It doesn't have any consequential damage, so I don't know how many activations it gets. Oh, I get it now. Okay, we'll talk about it. So it has 1 thwart, 2 attack, and 3 health. It's Blade. If you know Blade, I like Blade. He's one of the characters I like. It says after Blade thwarts or attacks, choose to either spend a red resource from your hand or discard Blade. So every time he attacks, you have to spend a resource or he dies. Every time. That's not necessarily hard. I guess the question is it worth loading your deck up with red resource just to be ready to pay for this card? And that's just something you have to determine as you're building your deck. Like how important is this card that you can focus on one type of resource to be able to pay for it. I don't think it's bad. I think the question is it good enough to build your deck around? Some of these are reprints, but we'll talk about them because I don't think we've talked about them on the show yet. Avengers Tower, a 2-cost support. If each of your allies has the Avenger trait, again, Avengers, increase your ally limit by 1. So if all your allies are Avengers, you can have a 4th ally. You can also exhaust Avengers Tower, reduce the cost of the next Avenger ally played this phase by 1. So it's just a way to help enable some of the Avenger ally builds. Avenger allies are really the most common when it comes to the tribal builds. And Avengers Tower is a must-have in a deck like that. Avengers Mansion, 4-cost support. Again, this is a reprint. Max 1 per player. Exhaust Avengers Mansion. Choose a player. That player draws 1 card. So you pay 4 up front, and then you can tap this to draw a card every turn, or you can let another player draw a card. That's totally a viable thing you could do. The last major basic card, we're not going to talk about the energy cards that in this video. So the last major basic card we're going to talk about, I don't know if this is a reprint or if it's new, but we'll talk about it. It's a 1-cost upgrade called Ready to Rumble. It says play under any player's control. So you can give this to a teammate if you want. Max 1 per player. After you change form, discard this card, ready your hero. You can recover, go to hero form, ready your hero, and attack. That's the last of the Spectrum deck. We're not going to talk about the obligation cards and things like that. At some point, maybe I'll go into detail about the villain decks and things like that. But for right now, we're just talking about the hero cards. And that's it for Spectrum. So that does it, everyone, for the Spectrum deck as it comes in the box. I'm really excited to break this down, give my own thoughts, and create my own Spectrum deck. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm really, really excited to do it. Leave your thoughts for the deck in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget that the Adam Warlock deck will be coming out a week from today, so look forward to that. Until then, you guys have a great day, and see ya!